treated like a crisis. But we are not living in a right and proper world. We're living in a detached fragmentation indeed, where we have not just had free for alls for every single human that is on our planet, but such detachment has led itself to total fragmentation and desensitization from everything to do with this, what we call the global emergency of emergencies. Of course, it's not going to be talked about. You don't get a brainwashed generation. In fact, it's not just been one young people's generation that's been brainwashed. We have had many generations brainwashed. We have had the boomer generation to a large extent brainwashed. We have had the X generation to mostly large extent brainwashed. In fact, this brainwashing of minds goes back countless decades. It is no wonder and no surprise to me personally at all as to why it is not possible to have a conversation based on urgency, understanding, education, intelligence, and constructive conversation of any capacity with that level of brainwashing. No surprise to me at all. Because, as I've mentioned too many times, with not just within these room spaces, but actually across the board. Let me take a pause. I have my friend Paulo. Good to see you, Paulo. Thanks for joining me, brother. Let's bring you up on the microphone. We can get a good connection for you. Paulo, before I say anything else, hope we have you there as on speaker. Looks like you've dropped down. Hopefully we can get you as a connect. Yeah, we have got you on speaker. Paulo, I'm going to give you the microphone, brother. Hope you're doing well where you are in the country. I know you're in the UK with me. What would you like to share with us in the room?
Hey, it's nice to speak to you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, brother. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's nice to speak to you. It's nice to listen. Not had a great deal of time recently. I think it feels like time is more pressing now, and we have to, excuse me, we have to make the most of each day that we've got. One of my best friends 2 weeks ago passed away. Yeah, he had a short battle with cancer. He was 54 years old, and it came as quite a surprise. He didn't find out he had it until the end of August, and he was given between 4 and 6 months to live, and he passed away at the start of last week, which is absolutely devastating. I've known him a long time, and it really, for me, it's just to put things in perspective. We have to be conscious of the problem, and communication is such a huge part of that. It's a fundamental part of that. But I think we also have to realise that we can only have so much of an impact. The size of these groups, and I think it was touched upon just before I joined the conversation. People are so comfortably numb, and it's the only system they've ever known. And I get that now when I speak to people on a day. People get the problems, but then you explore the problems and you take it a little bit step further and you talk about sustainability and the issues that have got us having these conversations in the first place. And there's an element of a lot of people where it just switches off. That they can't compute it, they can't comprehend it, and that's the reality, I think, of where we're at. And you got to try your best. And it's not that you can't reach everyone. There are people out there who accept it and understand it. And you get a bond when you speak to people have got that open mindedness, and that's really all it is. It's just a question of open mind. But the fracture now that we see in humanity, and the lack of humanity for so many people, with everything that's going on, the numbness, it's actually quite breathtaking. And in the midst of all that, we've got the storm at the door, and that storm is coming in so many different ways and forms and fashions. It's kind of overwhelming and it's daunting. The problems now are becoming daunting, and it's right in front of people's faces. And I think even people who aren't willing to go the whole rabbit hole of understanding just how far down that path that we are as a civilization. It's quite breathtaking, and it's an enormous challenge. It's an absolutely enormous, and it's at a point now. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the report today about the methane spike from the ocean floor, and whether that's clathrate gone. I don't know. It's too early to say. It's not a good indicator, is it? It's not a good sign of where we're at, and that's just one. And you know, each and every one of you could talk for the next hour about the issues that are going on and about how the issues themselves are going exponential. That word gets thrown around so many times, and it's a word that I use a lot because it's true. It's a great word to sum up the ecological disaster that we've set upon ourselves. Climate change is only a symptom. We know that. But the point is, we could talk for hours and hours and hours about each and every factor of it. We, bless yourselves for having that rational mind to understand all those factors. It puts you in an uncomfortable place. It certainly does me, but I think it's better to know the truth, whatever it is, than live comfortably numb. And that's what you're up against with a lot of people. A lot. It's going to come to them. It's going to come to them like a donkey punch, and they won't see it. They just can't see, and it's knocking at the door. It's festering in the air now. You can feel that things aren't right. Whatever level you want to put that on, whatever dimension of the system you want to put that on, every dimension seems to be stained with the same problem, and that's where we're at. So it's a really important time, and I appreciate each and every one of your thoughts, whatever they are. It doesn't really matter. Bless you for having the thoughts, and I'll wrap it up. Bless you for having the thoughts, whatever they are, guys, and bless you for having the minds opening up to accept other thoughts. That's such a fundamental weapon in where we're at now, to have that open-mindedness and that moderation of emotion where you can take a step back and listen and accept. But the first and the fundamental is to accept that there is a problem in the first place, and that's kind of where we're at. Cheers, Robert. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thanks, Paulo. I do appreciate you coming to the microphone. Just want to send my condolences to you, Paulo, for your friend. Deeply sad to hear that news. I am sorry. Sincerely, I am. Indeed, your words, Paulo, every time you come to the microphone, they really do tell the truth for what it is. We know, I think there's a greater proportion more than ever now of people across our planet, indeed, across our communities. They know that things are not what they should be. They know that things are not right. And yet at the same time, they are what I call crippled with that uncertainty of a situation that they know that although they have facts, that although they have knowledge, although they understand, it's not enough for them to want to have the discussions with their fellow people, their families, their communities. They have a sense that something is badly wrong, yes, that is absolutely right. But at the same time, they also have a sense of being paralyzed by not wanting to vocally get involved. It's a battle of extremes, extreme fear of paralyzation of reality. And at the same time, because that paralyzation of reality has come over them, at the same time, they feel that they cannot go any further than just taking it on board, but not taking it on board, if you understand my meaning, because it's too scary. It's too terrifying. It's too difficult for their mindsets to be able to process enough to have a conversation where they feel that they are putting themselves out on the line to discuss it, if you will. So it is what I call walking the precipice of two ideologies, of two ideals. a precipice that is indeed what you might call a split personality of discussion. The analogy, I think you get my gist of what the analogy can and would be under such circumstances. Oliver, I want to welcome you back to the microphone. I know you have something to share. What would you like to say?
Well, it's about this subject that seems to be emerging as the kind of the kind of primal sort of push towards trying to get something done. In the club, I mentioned about the AI, and it's a shocking thing to have to resort to AI to wake people up, and they don't have the capability quite yet to do this, to use it. I mean, it really is Matrix stuff, isn't it? I mean, red pill, blue pill. My God, everybody's taking the. I forget which one it was. They're saying they're taking the red pill, and they're staying in the world that we're all in now, oblivious to what's going on in the real world. They just take the blue pill and and cope with the reality of it all. Now, I was reading Volkov is very good value for flooding at the moment, and she's got a post about, I think it's Ibiza, and people going off for their late summer sort of like jaunt in Ibiza, and they're enjoying themselves and they're having a good time, and they're treating the whole damn thing, a flood like that, as a kind of joke. Either they're bots, they could be bots as far as I know. The comments, that a lot of them seem to be just like a smiley or a thumbs up or something like that. But a lot of the comments are very kind of jokey and matey, and oh, isn't this fun? Oh, I went there just last week, and oh, I had the wrong ticket, so I was able to sort of scam my way through, and this, that, and the other. And it's like deeply disturbing that people are just carrying on, not knowing, or knowing and not giving a toss about it, and putting out comments on a flood that is quite clearly not just a little sort of trinket of water being a leak in the roof or something like that, but it's something far more radical. And it's just so disturbing that this oblivion, this matey oblivion, this jokey attitude just persists, as though it's a bit of a laugh. It reminds me actually of the Railings incident during the war, when it actually was Churchill who spotted that people were dancing at the Savoy while the East End burned, and he couldn't believe it. And he thought, how the hell am I going to wake people up about this? So he started removing their front railings. And you can't make armaments out of front railings. They're full of impurities. It's just not. But that wasn't the point. He wasn't doing it because he obviously knew that, or somebody told him, can't use them. They're all just taken away, dumped off Southend in the sea. But the point was, if you start removing people's railings, then you start to make them realize, that there is a fucking war on. And this is like a war. It is a bloody war. And if we don't find a way of waking these idiots up, then we're all going down with them. And I don't care about them, but I do care about other people around me. You know what I mean? Who do care about this world. They can all fucking burn, but we're not going to, okay?
Yeah, I like the way you put that across, Oliver. I really do. It's brilliantly said. I know you've got such a wonderful grasp of the way that you share it live. I do thank you again for that. It is, no, we're not going to lie down. We're not going to let ourselves, those of us that are already empowered in the mind upstairs, of which there are a lot of us, thank God there are, because there are many, many of us indeed that have no clue, still have no clue, because they would rather lie in this, what I call absolutely ridiculous sense of oblivion to what is going on around us. I find that I can't get my head around how people can become how people no, that's not a word. I cannot get my head around why people continue to persist in being oblivious to the obvious in front of their very face, if you will. And it's something I find really, really not just aggravating, but I find it utterly, I find it insanity, to want of a better word. Before I continue, I want to say a big high of appreciation to you, T. I've noticed that you've joined us, brother, and I thank you for your presence here, T. As always, great to see you. Hope you're keeping safe and well in your neck of the woods over there. As indeed we continue to have this conversation about the state of affairs, and my God, what a state of affairs they are and continue to be. Because, of course, for the reasons that I continue to outline tirelessly within these live room spaces, but indeed the reasons that I outline on this global platform leave nothing to the imagination, and nor will they continue to. We have a monumental job indeed of education and empowering people. How we do that, of course, depends on how many more people we can get that message proverbially across to. But getting that message across is one thing, but actually bringing the ability for social change like never before is quite another. Social change. Many people, they don't, what I call, join up the dots consecutively between social change that is needed because of systems that are rancid, collapsed, and indeed unfit for purpose. They don't join up the dots between that and what is happening with the climate and ecological emergency. Once people realize that the very business of as usual, which I get very tired of using that phrase or phrases, but indeed, yeah, it has to be mentioned because the entire principles and governing workings of business as usual have brought an entire world platform of people to why we are living in conditions within the climatic conditions that are changing the face of how we are able to exist on this earth. That is the determining factor and continuing determining factor of how much will be spared, depending on how much of our business as usual we successfully put in place to reining in. Because business as usual continues to be one of the most toxic founding principles of why we are in this state of affairs that we are in. So many people, of course, indeed, find great difficulty in even understanding of the fact, but it does have to be explained on a massive, monumental educational basis as to why we are in this situation because of the fact of the industrial workings of a boom and bust economy, which has been allowed to flourish and indeed continue to flourish on such an all-encompassing scale. This, of course, never-ending mindset ideology that you continue to take every resource from the planet, no matter what is left, you take even that. So there is absolutely nothing in existence left in rich resources that you can plunder from the planet. That is the ideology that even now understand fully that taking away every last resource on this earth, what it is continuing to do to our planet's atmosphere and what it is continuing to do in order to completely fuel and propel this climate emergency in its entirety. I don't believe any political figure is so ignorant that they do not understand by now. But of course, as I've said so many times before, they daren't. And I mean, daren't speak the truth to the public, because speaking the truth to the public means the kiss of death to every single system that is in operation now. And if you have every single system severed within the way that it is geared to be run now, you remove the ability, of course, like a set of dominoes, for so many, many people. Indeed, all those wealthy individuals that are already basking in the glory of excess, those are not unlimited in the in their entirety by any stretch of the imagination. And it is because taking away the usual principles of gaining wealth by extraction, you take that away, and indeed, entire economies has been mentioned many times before in different ways. Economies that are existing because of the way they are governed with the wealth systems of the extraction and the way that is already in place, those economies will completely and utterly fall. But the problem is, when you remove those economies, you remove the entire situation of all of us being able to have any semblance of being able to configuratively, as I put it, hang in there under the conditions and systems of which we are already under. That is why I talk many times and will continue to do so about the fact that these economies need to be reworked not in favor of the rich people in their entirety, but they need to be reworked in favor of all those that deserve to have a life and to be able to exist and live on our planet. But doing that and saying that are two very different ideologies of context. Oliver, more on the microphone for you, fellas.
No, this is what you're talking about is reminding me of the two things: our cousins, the monkey in the cookie jar, and the babouin, and the salt, the salty kind of the piece of salt that is put inside a hole in the ground. And the monkey takes out. I like that. I like the salt one myself because the monkey takes out the salt, and tries to withdraw the salt from the hole and can't because the fist is blocking the way out of the hole. So the fist is holding this piece of salt, and he can't get it out of the hole because he's trapped inside the hole by his fist, by the monkey fist. And the local guy comes along, releases the monkey from the hole, but ties him to a little stake and allows the monkey, the babouin, to have, because it was in French, you see, and allows the monkey to eat the salt. But the monkey is then is attached to the stake and can't escape, but eats the salt and spends the night then feeling very, very thirsty. So in the morning, the local guy, he releases the monkey, and the monkey runs like mad. But the guy can run pretty fast too, and he runs and he follows the monkey, and the monkey basically is very, very thirsty. So the monkey finds the hidden water. The monkey goes to where the hidden water is, and basically shows the local guy where the water is. Now, once the monkey is having a drink, the local guy now knows where the water is. He can use the water for all the needs that they need to have the water for, and the monkey is happy too. So everyone is happy at the end of the day. It's an outcome that comes from being business as usual, holding the fist inside the hole and not letting go. Once you let go and there's cooperation, there's an outcome that is positive to everybody. So it is possible to find your way through this issue, this problem. So although I just slightly random sort of explanation of how it might be possible to find a way back.
I really love that analogy, Oliver. Sincerely, it's a wonderful way of putting across the way that constructively an entire global nation, if you will, can get itself out of these difficulties. Beautifully said. Thanks for bringing that to the microphone, Oliver. As I've said, thank you for that. I do think that indeed the principles that were so beautifully shared there with you can be shared on a global stage platform. But as I said, there needs to be, and I keep talking about this, and I sound like a broken, or at least I feel like I sound like a broken record sometimes. But I think these principles, they need to be adopted on such a mass scale. But I think we can come together. I've said this so many times before. I do believe that it is possible for all of us to be in union, to discuss, and indeed to educate and empower in all the right ways in order to bring this, what I call the blooming of the fruit, if you will, on a mass scale. Reworking of economies. Well, yes, it doesn't have to mean the shutdown of economies. In fact, far from it. To my mind, a reworking of an economy means that you move heaven and earth, but for reasons that are not purely governed by profit and excess. You see, one of the fundamental ideologies that has proved what I call totally um, unsuccessful and is still persisting in driving us to oblivion is the fact that across this planet, every single economy worships excess. It worships excess wealth, and it worships those that have excess in terms of, well, money, of course. These ideologies are failed principles. I've said so many times before that to have X amount of billionaires, there is nothing healthy about the mindsets that persist in and indulge in this. Not in the slightest. When you have mere handfuls of people that are given unlimited power, which I feel is totally toxic and totally unhealthy in every given nature, to the very ability to bring democracy and balance to the greater good of the rest of us as people. You see, I am totally, and I'm not going to use the word against, I am totally at odds, because that is a far better way of me summing up and describing my feelings towards those that think that an entire global economy is healthy when we only have select handfuls of people with so much power and so much influence and so much cash that they dictate what every other person on earth is allowed to think, say, do, and adhere to within those given economic situations globally, worldwide. It is toxic. It is extremely bad for the entire workings of an entire society globally. And I cannot but help continue to have to reiterate these points simply because I feel that while we continue to persist with the ideology that handfuls of people alone, with mass amounts of indeed billions and trillions of dollars, are the only way for economies to be successful, I'm sorry, but I don't buy it. And indeed, it is, to my mind, while economists continue to persist in these ideologies, we will continue to persist to fail because engage in reality. They don't want to engage in what I call the engagement of understanding that you cannot have democracies on this planet for the greater good, and indeed human rights across this earth. To my mind, and I'm sure many of you in the room and hopefully out of the room, human rights do not exist in any entirety or are encompassed in any scale or level on the current situations that we have across our earth. And I'm sorry to have to say, until we continue to change the very framework of these democracies, or should I say, a lack of democracies, because the frameworks are part and parcel of the very existence of how we redefine and change things. We need frameworks that actually work for the people. But doing that, indeed, is another matter altogether. It's not just about unifying. It's not just about discussion. It's about realizing that the people, not just when it comes to the fact that it is an unbalanced playing field in its entirety, but the people indeed need to have that intricate ability to be able to have these systems changed, as I say so many times, for the greater good of their local communities as well as their national communities. We have across this earth so much divide, so much intolerance, so much hate, so much bigotry. It continues to blur, change, and deface so much on this earth, and it will continue to do so. We look under the present conditions, that is, we look at what happens indeed when countries destabilize, when countries fragment. We look at the situation in Sudan, the situation across the geographical map of Africa. We see what destabilization, what indeed lack of democracy, lack of political governance for the greater good or integrity of rising above corruption. We see what that does indeed with African democracies alone. There is very little in the word democracy that can be used to illustrate for the greater good purposes of the African continent. We have situations where we have leaders which are in deep denial of the basic human rights of their own citizens in that given country. Of course, yes. Those of you that know me well enough know that I talk about human rights as freely as I talk about climate and ecological matters, because without human rights, we do not have the ability to have the justice for the climate and ecological situation. Remember, it's human rights across the board on this planet that are in such thin existence that they are denying the people any say because they are trying to suppress. And if they're not trying to suppress people, they're trying to kill them. This is, of course, what we're seeing across the board in the Palestine region. Not only is Netanyahu and Israel dedicated to wanting to take every last particle of land from the Palestinian people, and that's what this is. It always was. It's been said by other people as well as me, of course, but I'm saying it now because it's relevant to the conversation. This has been a wholehearted land grab, indeed, from Netanyahu across the Palestinian region. And he has not cared and still does not care how many people are indeed obliterated, annihilated from existence, from their own flesh and blood of soil land, if you will. It is, of course, a case in point. While we continue to allow, and I will say this, talking on the human rights angle again, of which I do enjoy doing because it is so relevant a topic. It's a very, what I call all-encompassing topic, human rights. It is relevant to the very second of when I open my mouth in these room spaces and when I end it. Because bear in mind this, that in the time of these few hours and a bit more of this room space will be broadcast live, there will be more people that have died at the hands of failed human rights. There'll be more people that indeed have had atrocities put upon them and their families because of no human rights. There will be more people that have been harmed, maimed, pillaged, attacked, and obliterated because of no human rights. So it is without question one of the most relevant topics that we have entwined. I clear my throat, apologies, excuse me, of these discussions on an ongoing basis. Indeed, talking back again, of which I do want to bring the Palestinian situation into the room space. It's what it's about. Very, very relevant topics on the issues at the moment. And indeed, I will be talking about it a long, long time after the fact that we have seen this so-called, what I call the most suspect of ceasefires. I don't believe for one second, and I'm sure all of you would be in agreement. I certainly think you would be. I don't trust Netanyahu or the Israeli army for one second, or indeed Trump to hold good to the preserving of human life over there in the Palestinian region, just simply because there are a few documents that have been very hastily drawn up, just because the entire world has denounced the presence of Israel, the army, and indeed the actions of genocidal and homicidal maniacs. I want to
Robert, he only did it for the peace prize, and he didn't get it. He didn't do it for the Palestinian people. He did it. He did it for the peace prize. He's just. I know he's looking like a spoiled brat, sitting there all grumpy, and sort of. And he didn't get his peace prize, so anything could happen again. Now you're absolutely right. Now he'll just push for this stupid resort thing. The Palestinians are just caught in the middle of these maniacs, these utter egotistical maniacs, these babies that are in charge of these countries. Honestly, I'm sorry. I just felt it just came out of me.
Microphone, and you said that, Oliver. No problem at all. Anytime, as I know you want to share, do share on the mic. It is exactly. And I know Trump, of course. This is the kind of egotistical creature, the contemptible creature that Trump is. The fact that he could even open his mouth and say, "Do I get a Nobel Peace Prize for ending the war?" when we know that he has has been completely obvious right from the beginning, launch and stoic supporter of indeed the likes of Netanyahu in his entirety. And he always was completely and utterly and unequivocally on Netanyahu's side. We're talking terrorists here, hand in hand, hand in glove. And there is absolutely no question to my mind that the Palestinian people's suffering has not ended within any measure. In fact, the suffering continues to be paramount. We have vast displacements of hundreds of thousands of millions upon millions of people with no proper homes, living in tents, and we have millions who do not have the access even to tents. They have no access to fresh, clean water or food or clothes or bandages or medicines or communication abilities. This is an ongoing atrocity, an ongoing apocalypse. We have people coming back to Gaza in their masses, yes, coming back to rubble, coming back to dust. I find the whole process, the ongoing process, about as destabilizing in one's own mindsets to see the atrocities that are continuing to be allowed to play out as it could possibly be. As you probably all know, that me and Alex hold a Gaza space on a Wednesday, 4 p.m. UK time. And in the time that me and Alex have held that Gaza space, we have had countless Palestinian people coming in, virtually begging on live microphone for aid and help. And it touches my heart every single time that I hear a starving mother with her 3, 4, 5, 6 children and more coming onto that microphone, not knowing what on earth or how on earth she is going to be able to continue to live by the second and be able to bring food to her children because of the sheer scale of this humanitarian depravity that has been thrust upon these poor people. I do find it, and of course, the icing on the cake for me recently is the total, what I find intolerable, yet again, as if there wasn't enough to find intolerable about always, is the fact that the Global Summit Flotilla, many vessels, not just least Greta's, indeed, were, as you all know, I'm sure within this room space and out, captured, yes, by the Israeli army, intent, of course, on devastation, carnage, annihilation, for all the usual reasons. So sick and so capacitated, so indeed like-minded with their veins flowing with terrorism activity, that they could not even allow those vessels to bring that humanitarian aid for a city that they had systematically crushed over the course of the weeks and months that indeed over the 2-year period and a lot more than that, that this genocide and Holocaust has been allowed to persist. Maddening, no, that is not the word I would use. I find it, I am totally and utterly beyond the blood boil territory of how completely and utterly angry I am with seeing the atrocities which continue to persist. I know that food, hopefully, and indeed all the extremities of medicines, communicative support, shelter support can be implemented. I sincerely hope so. I've seen many Palestinian people who have contacted me over the course of what has been getting more and more intensified in recent weeks. They have contacted me begging for continued putting out there of their situations consecutively within their given families, and the fact that they are totally what I call disillusioned with not enough donations, whether it be through I think one of the donation links is Chuffed, I think it is. My memory serves me right without double checking. And of course, we do have the excellent Radio Watermelon with at Morning Star at the helm and hands of guiding that. It is a situation in which I wanted to touch. As you know, I talk about human rights affairs in this space, and I will continue to always talk about and champion human rights affairs. People, indeed, with a conscience, and indeed I do have that. I also want to be able to bring a level of safeguarding in the way that I hopefully can in my own way. Indeed, guided by the principles and ideals of decency with many other helpers that are like-minded like me, in order to make the difference and hopefully bring some level of safeguarding. When we think about wars, we think about collapse, we think about social, economic, and democratic collapse. We have all that over there in Palestine, in Gaza. Indeed, the situation yet again, when I even open my mouth about the atrocities of what Trump liaisoning indeed with murderers and will continue to do so. I've no doubt that indeed this sick facade of talking about what I have learned to a certain extent, my knowledge is limited, I will put that out there, of rebuilding. I think Oliver will know something about this rebuilding of certain situations within the Gaza region, Palestinian region, turning them into some sort of arcade.
Yeah, it's a fucking nightmare. Actually, it's
Yeah.
they want. I mean, like the Med is dead basically anyway, and it's basically concrete round the Med. So everywhere is a resort basically, and this is like one. I mean, to play along with them. I mean, first of all, the amount of concrete that has been demolished, the amount of concrete pollution, the amount of concrete that is basically has to be, if you like, rebuilt, is an astronomical feat in itself, and of course a huge emission of CO2 just in the production of concrete, massive one, which is kind of griping for me personally. But for the people of Palestine, it's, for the Palestinians, it's an absolute nightmare because they want to stay in Gaza, but they also want to have a homeland, and obviously the West Bank is where they want to be, really. And the West Bank is being invaded all the time by these crazies. They're literally crazy. They look like zombies. These Israeli settlers who are just running and burning, running across the West Bank and burning Palestinians' farms and settlements and so on. And they're just I looked at them. They look like something from the Crazies movie. They look like something from a zombie movie. The Israeli settlers, and they don't have any. They don't have any respect for anybody. They just need to have any respect for themselves. So,
Yeah, the West Bank is the place to be. The problem about the West Bank is it's all about the water. This has always been about the water. And the Israelis have to hang on to the River Jordan. And of course, the West Bank basically annexes the River Jordan. So the whole of Israeli history is about the River Jordan and about the water supply for Israel. Now, what has happened in the meantime, it's become cheaper for the Israelis to produce desalinated water through, the process of osmosis, basically, reverse osmosis. And so they're doing a lot more of this. And they're also reprocessing all the sewage and stuff like that really well, actually. I mean, I hand it to the Israelis. They're organized and they can get shit done, but they need to get a little bit more human in their dealings with their neighbors. I mean, that would just make everything so much happier and easier for them. So the water is a big thing. If the Israelis are able to put some flow back into the River Jordan, back towards Jordan, and they are able to produce much more water than they were able to do, then they can start to think about relinquishing some of that land and give it back to the people who it belonged to in the modern and the near ancient history rather than the ancient history. So the Palestinians could get the West Bank properly back. It's theirs anyway. The Israelis are illegally. They're illegally controlling it. They got control over the security. That was the problem. So yeah, it's a muddle, but I hope it explains a little bit anyway.
It does, Oliver. Thanks for coming to the microphone and sharing that in the room. I was relying on your expertise and knowledge of the region. I know it's vast, is indeed your expertise, and the knowledge is vast, Oliver, on a lot of things. That's why it's great to have you on the microphone to share them, because it will educate and, get that, educative element out there. Indeed, me talking about human rights. It is part and parcel of these room spaces. I did touch quite a bit, indeed, in previous room spaces in weeks and months gone on indigenous human rights. I still champion them. Don't get me wrong. I'm completely at one with indigenous voices and the need for all indigenous people on the earth to be respected, understood, loved, and listened to. That has not gone. Although indeed the changing of the title was indeed an element of necessity for certain reasons. Indeed, my indigenous capacity has not diminished within any semblance at all. We continue to champion, we welcome indigenous people from all regions on our earth, whether it be the USA, whether it be indeed any country across the African continent, across Europe, across Australia. It would be lovely, and I haven't had this happen yet. I haven't, as far as I can recall, I have not had an Aborigine come into the room space and talk. I do hope it can happen. I sincerely do, because Aborigines within native Australia are some of the most wondrous and all empoweringly gifted human beings that walk the earth. Their knowledge is vast. Their love for ecology and nature is the very life blood of nature itself. There is no question. They do not need to use the word dedication, because they are natural masters of indeed the fabric of nature itself. Whenever I look at how indigenous people across Australia, talking about them for a minute, indigenous people, indeed Aborigines, which are they're indeed their life, indeed the way that they conduct themselves across the most hostile and indeed perilous landscapes within the Australian region, because that landscape is a perilous one. Although they are masters of the entire craft of knowing what the dangers are, I think even an Aborigine would say to you that the landscape is not without its dangers in their entirety. The dangers are quite massive. But indeed, to those of us that are not all-encompassingly educated or understanding of the practices of our Aboriginal friends, would be lovely, as I've said, to have one or two or even more join us in my room spaces. I can but hope that their presence may grace us one of these days, as indeed I always look for new faces and new people to join me in these room spaces, because, as I've said many times before, you're not just listeners, but you're actually participants that have the full availability of a microphone to you at any given moment that you should want to share what is you're feeling and is on your mind. Your views matter to me. That's what I'm trying to say. I care about what you want to share. I care about what you want to say, because every voice is important and every voice needs to be able to, in my mind, have that ability, should you want to, of course, be able to speak about any given topic or subject that is dear to your heart. So we know the guiding principles of these room spaces. I think many of us who are already here know that they exist because of a community led crusade. They exist because of a democratic spirit that is all encompassing of the greater good of us, the public, with every single ability that we have available.
Robert, do you remember that guy that pissed you off? Ozzy. He was very good on
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Aborigine. Do you remember? It was quite funny, but he was very good on the Aborigine setup. He basically says basically that they don't particularly like to get involved because they don't have to, and they are wary, if you like, and I understand that completely. I know a little bit about it. There are four big mobs basically in Australia, four large ones, and there are obviously lots of smaller ones and interaction between other ones as well. And that they are, they consistently, as usual, with all First Nation people, they continue to protest against, open coal mines and stuff like that, trying to on sacred grounds, trying to stop them. And there's also a big whiplash of the same thing going on. I think it's in Papua New Guinea as well. Same kind of thing going on where the sea actually is rising, and it's despoiling relatives who've died. The ancestors, their ancestral graveyards and so on, their burial grounds. So it's all linked to our issues, to the climate crisis as well, with the rising sea levels. But in Oz, yeah, it's First Nation. I would like to say as well that I think the Australian colonialists, which are traditionally British, they did a very bad thing when they voted down the inclusion properly of Indigenous people in the parliamentary process, which is wicked, really. That was, I think, last year, wasn't it?
What's that? Yeah. Oh, thanks. Back to the microphone. Yes, I do remember our Aussie friend. There were no hard feelings attached at all. It was one of those weird and bizarre incidents of which one personally, i.e., myself, wish I could have handled a little bit better. But these things do happen, I know, and any apologies indeed that were needed, I was very quick to say. But there was no hard.
Dino, that was it. Dino, you remember?
He's a good bloke. He really is. He's gone through some terribly tough times. He had his home burnt down, as far as I can remember, from wildfire, and I'd sent him love and appreciation. He's a great guy, sincerely, and I know that he had some great stuff to share. There was a funny communication issue there on that particular occasion, which happens. Friends, they got hearts of gold. They all have, sincerely. They love the fact that they can bring communication and community spirit in their conversation. And I love them for that. I really sincerely do. I think Australia as a country is going through hell and back, not least because of the climate emergency, but at the hands of an ever-changing face of the way their democracy, or rather lack of it. But isn't that always the way with every country? When we continue to start talking about democracies, we start asking ourselves the question, why is it it's only in name and not actually in deed? There's much to be able to discuss here with the way that we fundamentally, in so many ways across our planet, the greater majority of people, for all the wrong reasons, they do believe that they have got a semblance of a stable democratic future. It's a delusion like any other. But when the what I call the paper is peeled from the wall, so to speak, then you start to unravel what really is the truth about how little you have in democratic nature and the illusion of how much you think you have. Before I say any more, I want to welcome Annette to the room, my Danish superstar friend. It's great to see you here, Annette. If you want the microphone, do feel free, sister. I shall bring you up. And John, it's great to see you here, brother. Thanks for joining me. Really is lovely to have your presence. I hope you're keeping safe and well over there in your neck of the woods. Indeed, as we continue this conversation, and it has been a great one this evening, I thank you all for those of you who come to the microphone so far, making it as great as it is, because without your voices, as I said, this is a community effort globally. It always was and it always will be. Without you bringing your energy, your enthusiasm, your knowledge, your learning, and your education, we can't do it singly. We all indeed are a family. And we do, in my mind, very much benefit from having all of us on board, dedicating our abilities and our talents to being there, not just for one another, but for the greater good of what's going on around us in our societies. There's always much to discuss and talk about, and there always will be, because the changing face of global politics and the changing face of human rights, or rather the lack of them, notice I get that in there straight away, because when I talk about the very words human rights, it's exactly what I'm not seeing. I'm seeing the opposite of that. Every single day, I'm seeing if there are any semblance of what I might call an approach to gaining human rights accountability and accessibility for all, I see them eroded in equal measure at the same time. We know that it's an ongoing process. We know that human rights is an ongoing labor of love, if you will. It shouldn't have to be like that. It should already be part and parcel of the fabric for every single person. We shouldn't have to live in fear in our given communities for lack of being able to speak the truth. This is an erosion and a basic erosion of our human rights. But I want to bring this to the conversation, if I will, for a minute. The erosion of being segregated for speaking the truth is aligned with the fascist idealism, which is trying to cleanse our societies. We see this with the Trump administration. Fascist to the core? Of course it is. You don't have that sort of mental ideology of anything less than total fascist intent. There you have a man that is so ingrained with inequality, ingrained with not knowing what democracy means for anybody. The only person that indeed wants gratification for the entire control of everything, not least within the USA, is Trump and his administration. He wants to own every single person in the United States. He wants to control every single person in the United States. Control, indeed, with ideologies that are totally based on the principles of silence, of suppression, of fascist intent in their entirety. And indeed, such is the given state of ideology within that man's brain that he believes that to suppress and indeed take away every single semblance of human rights from every single person in the United States alone is to the greater good of how things should be. That is the state of that man's brain. It's what I call not just mentally dark, but indeed mentally deceitful, and indeed what I call totally toxic in mindset and incredibly dangerous. Because the ideologies of people like that on this earth, in the state of things are on this nation platform, are absolutely, totally, devastatingly evil for so many people in all the ways that I can possibly list and many more. It's that level, of course, of dissent that is threatening the very balance of everything across America. And of course, the icing on the cake, as if there should not be one in any semblance, form, or shape at all, I will say, is the fact that we talk about science denial. Yes, it is happening across the USA like a cancer. It continues to spread at what I call massive, all-encompassing speed. That level of shutting down science and thinking that it is socially, morally, ethically, and acceptable at any level in the humanitarian scale of things is not just evil, it's reprehensible in every possible way. We must, as global people, as citizens, not just across the USA, but across the board, we must stand up, as I've said so many times in the course of discussions on this X platform. We must universally stand up with all the might and force that we have as collective individual people against science denial. It's essential that we do so, because if we let people with indeed not just evil intent, but people that are indoctrinated with these ideologies of the most fascist of kind, if we continue to let these people run our given communities and societies, we will succumb to even more loss of our own civil liberties, our freedoms, and our human rights. And God knows we have lost enough of them categorically as it is already. I don't want to see any more lost, but I know, I'm afraid to say, my friends, I know I'm going to see a hell of a lot more human rights lost in the course of the ravages of what continues to persist across our failed democracies across our planet. Safeguarding democracies is a passage of right for the reasons indeed of which I have specified and talked about too many times before. But indeed, it's what I call segregation of civil liberties, or indeed civil liberties, and I get my words out right, has been part and parcel of the decline across our given decades for a long, long time. You might well ask the questions, how do we reshape our societies to be free, indeed, of fascist intent? Well, first of all, we must be vocal enough and determined and strong enough to stand up to these ideologies. The world has continued, the world, let me put it like this, has started to show what strength in numbers of voice and marching do in order to stand up to fascist intent with what the world has shown you, that you've seen on your screens, with what is happening with marches across our planet in solidarity, Palestine people in Gaza. That is what needs to be constantly put in place to standing up to fascism across our planet. We need to have all the public on board. Anything less, there's cracks, and that won't do. We need to have people understand that in order to stand up to this level of fascism, you have to not be afraid to stand up to it. Because, as I've said too many times before, that being afraid of indeed taking the most appropriate vocal action, as indeed we have seen taking place from country to country. And thank God we have, because we have now billions of people that are not afraid to tell Israel what they think of it. That is great. This has to be carried out as part of the usual, what I call operational ability of us as citizens to walk the earth, not afraid, but indeed putting our message out there with mass protests over and over and over again. Wherever there is fascist intent or wherever there is a fascist leader with a government, we have to replicate that level of intensity of protest at the very least in order to get our messages across. Because to my mind, nothing less is good enough. We've seen what people being switched on across our world can do. We must continue to understand just how vital that is, because it's not just America that is falling foul of fascism, far from it. We have that situation across the African continent. We have that situation indeed across Russia with Putin. And we have that situation that continues to persist in other areas across our globe as well. Fascism and fascist intent, not least across Brazil and Mexico as well, within the situations of governmental situations there, which are about as volatile as a powder keg and continue to be so. It is not least that vocal intent has always been one of the ideals of which you, the people, at grassroots level, can bring so much power and unity. But that's what we're looking to indeed strive to continue to bring to the fore here, power and unity with our voices, with our mindsets, with our actions. Now, I know that too many times when it comes to activism, and I've had many people talk about this to me over the course of time, they've said, well, I'm dedicated to my climate or environmental activism. I feel that it is absolutely vital to do it. And yet at the same time, I have people share with me that the fact that they still feel so suppressed, so caged, so switched off, so isolated from being able to feel that they truly are making a difference. That's when, of course, I turn very speedily to the ready to say to anyone who is a climate and environmental activist, anybody that is an ecological spokesperson or activist, let me put it like this: you are valued, you are needed, you are represented, because your voice and your actions alone are bringing a sense of unity to your fellow people, to the people who you stand shoulders with. It's that sense of unity that it is what I call the ongoing grassroots and the essence of why you must continue to do what you do on a daily basis, because it is to the greater good. It is not for nothing at all. It is for, indeed, the very abilities and indeed the moving forward of which you continue to do on a daily basis. You are valued. You are needed to continue to spread the message, because that message matters. Even when in the face of all adversity, you feel that the weight of situations that you think are not in your favor are weighing you down as heavily as possible, you can still categorically realize, after all those thoughts, that you are able to turn these situations around to the greater good. Yes, you can. Although those situations feel unfathomable, although those situations feel like a weight on your shoulders, you are still there. You are still fighting. You are still able to change and be a change maker, a decision maker, and indeed a game changer, because the very fact that you were doing what you were doing, no matter what your type of environmental, climate, or indeed human rights activism is, it all makes a difference, even if your voice is only part-time on the affairs, even if your voice is only random, even if your voice is indeed, not on the loudest of loudspeaker scales, you can still categorically change and be a change maker for all the right reasons. So, my message, my ongoing message to all those that feel that they are not what I call being valued as much as they would want to be, take heart. You are valued, you are needed, you are wanted on a global scale. Continue to champion what you love, your environment, your situations, your communities, your ability actually to be a change maker. Because being a change maker is different for different people in different ways and different ways of doing things. Many people within this room space, for example, have different talents which are brought to the fore. They're change makers, and indeed they are vital components in the cog of environmental comprehending awareness and environmental democracy across our planet. Many of you in the room indeed have your own unique and dedicated ways of environmental responsibility and actions. Some of you bring vital content with empowerment. Some of you have inventions and indeed are creating new inventions on a daily basis to the greater good of the situations, your communities, and your environments around you. So you see, when I put this out there, I realize everybody's talents for what they truly are. And I say, continue to nurture them because they are part and parcel of the very lifeblood of what continues to bring you contentment and bring others contentment around you. Having said that, I'm going to ponder, or should I say, observe a little bit further on the way that human rights can be what I call changed across our planet. Before that, I want to bring John up on the microphone. Bear with me, brother. We will hopefully bring you up on speaker and get a good connection for you. Indeed, it looks like we have got a connection for you. I always am relieved about that. John, and welcome to the room. I hope you're well over there. I'm going to put you on speaker straight away on the microphone. What would you like to share with us?
Yeah, hi, Robert. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit. And greetings to the room, everybody. Yeah, I was just skateboarding through the city. There's a lot of police out. There's some protests, a lot of protests going on in the city. You know, we know what's going on. But I just didn't want the noise. Didn't want to come up for the noise for the room. But right now, I'm just moving out from one of my art studio rentals. I'm not going to be able to continue having my sculptures in this little shared art studio, so I'm just bringing them out. But these are my sort of upcycling plastic containment animal sculptures. So I just figured I would, sometimes it's nice to just share some creative stuff. I'm trying to get some horses. I'm trying to finish up some horses because I know Big Chin's got his ride for life, and I'm hoping to lend some imagery to that because I wouldn't be able to go because I'm not in the U.S. But yeah, just wanted to say hi, checking in. That's about it.
It's great to hear you on the microphone, brother. I know that I tell you something, John, I deeply admire your creative talents, brother, with your sculptures. You have such an incredible hand from the material I've seen with the photos and the pictures, and it's sincerely appreciated by me. A talented artist like you, John, needs all the me putting out there how great you are as and a remarkably dedicated individual of artistic ability. So I do thank you for sharing that. As I said, I've seen a lot of your work, and it's certainly my appreciation of it is as big as you could wish, brother. So thank you again for coming to the microphone. As indeed this conversation continues to talk about so many elements. And before I continue, John, microphone again for you, brother. What would you like to share with us? Yeah, I don't know whether you can hear me, John. Microphone.
What are the protests for, John? What are the protests? You didn't say.
I try to stay at distance when there's a lot of police presence, so I wasn't able to even go down the lane. But I'm assuming it's Palestine. That's what I'm assuming, as that is usually what it is right now. Yeah, I kind of got to keep my distance. There's just no other way. But the other thing I was going to mention is I saw something about
I will get to you in a minute, brother, I promise. As I, first of all, I bring Abu up and I press the request, and I try to elaborate a little bit more on these questions. Indeed, I always try to want to bring a balance of answer, if I can do, to these questions that are asked, Alex, because it is to the greater good. I do believe to try to bring semblance of answer. Indeed, how do we continue to be more educationally aware, more productive? How do we bring more people in to understand what is fundamentally happening? We know that the ways and what we call the complete situations that we are in now, discussing all the elements, indeed, not just of the ecological and the climate emergency, but indeed, we strive to bring complete unity within human rights. Human rights is one of the elements that continues to not just suppress people, it also suppresses any semblance of having what I call concrete climate and environmental action across the board, from community to community, and it will continue to be like that unless we redress all these balances. But how do we stir the souls of people? This is one of the fundamental elements that continues to be part and parcel of what I call the question mantra that I continue to get asked. How do we bring that collective element of inspiring new voices, new faces, new people? It's a difficult balance. It's what you might call not just a very what I want to find the vocabulary for, a very demanding selection of bringing what I call that educational element to the people. But indeed, you have to gain people's not just their trust of wanting to communicate with you in the first place, not just to engage with you for the sake of engaging, but you have to bring that element of bringing people to want to actually have the conversation with you in the first place. That is a difficult one because we know, indeed, it has been spoken many times before, that when people are indeed wrapped up in their own lives, of which we all are to our own degrees, when you're wrapped up in your own lives, you have very little what I call desire or will, for that matter, to want to discuss the fragmentation of any ecological nature, of any environmental nature, of any climate nature. You do not want to even discuss human rights. You find the whole thing on the sort of what I call the scale of disinterest, for want of another word. Engaging people's interest, it is going to continue to be a monumental crusade, if I can put it like that. I do believe that we can continue to gain faces and people. And I do believe that for every face and person that we can gain that actually wants to think about ecology, at least think about your environment.
السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم.
Abu, yes, brother, what would you like to share with us?
أنا من غزة. No speak English.
Yes, my heart is with you there, Abu, and I must check your profile again because I'm not sure whether you were on a Chuffed donation or
You
rate.
help me, Gaza.
Yes,
You help me.
I can.
أرجوكم. You help me.
Yeah, I will help you or try to help you, Abu. The first thing I will share with you, brother, is if you can directly contact Radio Watermelon account on here on the X platform, Radio Watermelon, or at Morning Star, that's Rena at Morning Star, and let's get you set up if you are not already, Abu, for a donation capacity. But you'll need to register first with that Radio Watermelon so you can become verified, brother. If I can put that out, I will check your account in a minute again. If we can get you verified with Radio Watermelon, hopefully we can get donations in capacity. So I hope you've heard me okay there, Abu. Do contact Radio Watermelon at Radio Watermelon here. And also, Abu, engage in their live spaces, if I can ask you that, please, brother, so as you can talk to them directly and hopefully they can help you with ongoing urgency. Having said that, indeed, I will take a pause with my talks and sentiments, observations, indeed, Alex, on how we can better bring people in on this conversation of environmental consciousness. It's not impossible. It's a challenge, yes, it will continue to be so. But I do believe that we have the capacity to gain new friends, new faces, new willpowers. And also, what is dexterously obvious is that when we join spaces indeed with content from our indeed visitors across the planet, whatever your geographical location is, I think we can gain environmental following if we continue to spread the message in ways that can be engaging, communicatively speaking, because that's what counts here. Engaging conversations bring engaging what I call developments of changing the face of this conversation on an environmental and ecological landscape that need to be changed. A lot more on that from me, no doubt. But Oliver, thanks for being patient. I want to bring the microphone to you, brother. What would you like to say?
Oh, just that. Did you notice Alex came straight in with the same topic as we were discussing earlier, which is why can't we get through to the fuckers? You know, why can't we get through, or rather, why can't they wake up, or why can't they be brave enough to wake up, or why can't we get past the media? What do you call it? Wall. You know, the media. Sort of blanket coverage stopping the truth getting out there. And it just, I was just going to say that I think we don't need to worry too much, you know. I mean, we need to worry, but we don't need to worry too much because there's enough people who care out there, and there's enough people who are doing good protective work out there, and there's enough good stuff going on, even though the damage will be massive and huge, and it may, and in some ways irrevocable. It may be okay. It may be all right if we just keep plodding on. I mean, we're not here just to convert the whole damn world, and something is coming up the pipeline that is going to make a difference to people's awareness. I personally think it is an AI thing, and I've said that a couple of times. I do think that the AI will go to another kind of generation, and it will become much more matrix-like. It will become much more persuasive, much more intrusive into people's lives, in that they won't be able to resist it, and it will have almost a controlling effect to make people understand. And it may not be all the fears that we have about it being just a financial tool, or just a kind of a means to make people unemployed. But I don't really get the unemployment thing, I'm afraid, because there's always the physical world out there to be employed in, and that's where the work will be anyway. The huge amounts of repairs and everything else. So I wouldn't you worry, you know, be worried. It's overwhelming, and at the same time, it's because it's so huge and so massive that even the bad people can't kill it. I mean, that's my view on this matter, and they will get their comeuppance. I do think that if one of these big ogres, these oligarchs, these billionaires, these whatever they call these bros, can be turned, that it will make a huge difference as well. But I know that may seem like wishful thinking at the moment, but even somewhere in there, there is a human person. Somewhere in there, somewhere deep down, there is still a human being in there. There is usually a little boy, you know. So I'll just land that there.
So for that, I'm glad you did come back to the microphone, because I am in agreement with you there. Although there is going to be massive, and I will say, irreparable damage over such large-scale geographical parts of our planet and to people on the most massive of scales. At the same time, there are a hell of a lot of ecologically focused individuals, not just climate activists, because the world revolves around far more in terms of people than just climate and environmental activists, far more. But people that are ecologically dedicated and environmentally dedicated and concerned within their subjective, career applications that are indeed to do with the land and environmentally wired up. And I do believe that indeed your sentiments there, Oliver, which I am in tune with, I do believe sincerely that your view that yes, we do plod on. We do it extremely well, to my mind. And there are a lot of people, and I do mean a hell of a lot of people, that are already with us across the globe on a massive, massive scale that are what I call environmentally and indeed ecologically and indeed human rights bound, conscious of all the things that are entwined with this environmental situation, if you will. I do think we continue with feeling as positive and as all encompassing as we can, because I do. I feel very positive about everything to do with environmental matters. And indeed, I still feel positive about the climate matters as well. I have no reason not to. I've always said right from the start I had a vocal capability on this X platform, that the entire situation, with hard work, dedication, and foresight, and of course the mental ability to, be educationally empowered, if you will, for the right reasons to get the consecutive things done, there's no reason why things can't be achieved on a mass scale. It really is. It's as fundamental and clear cut as that. It doesn't have to be a list of subjectives that bring us down, not just into the doldrums, but actually hamper our creative and mental spirit, because that's the last thing we want. We want collective accountability, but we also want to know that we are happy enough to be in our own mindsets to be able to feel confident enough to get what needs to be done. And that is what truly matters here, getting situations changed, morphed, and repurposed to be fit for purpose. Having said that, Alex, I know you want to share more on the microphone, brother. What would you like to say?
Thanks, Robert. I think we have our group and the environmentalists on Twitter are the hardcore environmentalists and all the different types. So we try to tighten up our relationships together and try to help everybody improve their game. You see someone like our good friend Kim, over the years, the first year she couldn't get on the microphone, and now she's one of the best of us talking, cheerleading, teaching, energizing, motivating. So we continue to help everyone improve their game, improve, the support. So we can do that, improve our team. That issue of the apathetic, there are the bad actors, and I pretty much have given up on them. If they want to go to hell, that's their choice. But the apathetic are the hundreds of millions of people out there who do elect politicians, who do send the ultra wealthy their money. And to me, it is those people that we need to reach. What Hey Ho talks about, what that Elizabeth Sawin talk about. We talk about these experts and their views of how to get the message across. And then I do have my Unitarian minister ancestors, and I am very impressed by the Greek churches in the villages and the climate spirituality. I've always sort of held up a lot of that end of the story. But how do those churches get there? Around the world, what mechanisms do they do to get their message out there? And we've talked an awful lot in the last year about Native American spirituality, and I like the old the Zen brothers over there in Japan. They've pretty much given up on spreading the word. They figure you either get it or you don't get it. There's nothing to spread. And I do really like the Zen guys, the Zen Buddhism. I think we be ourselves. I think whatever, all the different branches of environmentalism that we, it's like different languages, and we have to respect these brothers and sisters, our colleagues, our friends, not just coming from different continents, but coming from different environmental continents and perspectives, and get an understanding of that. We don't have to agree with them, but just understand what they're saying. If it is deep green ecology. The other day, I was talking to Loie here. She didn't really know what deep green ecology was after all this time. We throw the word around. She didn't have much of an idea what it was, but if they're like man is a practicing scientist, right? In 1999, he's 34 years old, right? Sure, he grew up in the mountains, the hills of Massachusetts there. It's quite rural where he grew up, and there's a lot of good little streams for fishing or hills for hiking. He grew up in a rural area, but none of that matters. He's a scientist. He loves science. He wants to be a scientist, and he gets in the midst of this hockey stick political climate battle thing. He wasn't any environmentalist. He couldn't care less. He just wanted to do science, and his path has intersected with the rest of us. He's a citizen scientist who's wandered into environmentalism. He is that vegetarian with the old Prius. He's that guy. But we have to understand he's a citizen scientist. He's not a social genius, charismatic guy, natural ecologist or something. He's not Lyle Lewis, who grew up in a field in the hills in the wilds of Washington State, on a hill. We all come from different places, and there just has to be much more understanding of that. I don't know what kind of ecology I have with the artists in New York City. I'm a boy going to Central Park every day. What kind of environmentalism is that, sitting in Central Park? Mostly I was playing baseball, watching the Vietnam protests, or going down the slide in the park. I think Oliver can relate to that kind of upbringing. We all come to this ecology, the eco-feminists and the guys in Kampala, or Moses in his little town there in Western Uganda without electricity. We're all coming to this environmentalism from different places. And I think we don't understand that so well about each other. I literally think at this point we understand our cultural backgrounds, our orientations, our religions, all these different things. We get it. Julian lives in Mexico City, and he lives the life. We even discuss Mexican politics and get a background on what life. We understand all these other things about each other, but Julian loves bicycling. He loves cycling. My sister loves cycling. I know what these people, they're addicted to the bicycle. It's what they're living for, the Saturday morning bike ride. They do like 90 miles with a team, and that's Julian. He loves the mountain biking. He just loves it. It's like his favorite thing in life is getting out there on a trail in the hills and go mountain biking. And it was through the cycling that brought him to environmentalism. So, we can picture going south on his fjord as a kid, just being one with the whole beautiful Nordic scenery. We can feel these people and how they got to the party here, our environmental party. And I think there's got to be more acceptance of the others. I kind of know you guys didn't grow up with Greeks and the art family in Central Park, like I instinctively, and you weren't math prodigies. I kind of understand that I'm a little different. I'm kind of used to that, to understanding that, there are not too many people like me. I had a very peculiar upbringing. My father was 62 years old when I was born. I got all these weird, very unusual upbringing that not many people have a similar kind of upbringing. So I kind of don't think you guys came to the party the way I did, so I try to understand Robert right here. I think I have a good understanding of Oliver. Robert is a very complicated individual, and in that crisis club, climate club way, Robert, like Dale, I have a very hard time fitting Dale in. I have a hard time fitting you in. You have tremendous insight, energy, oration. I just, your message is very, very large, and kind of how to get more focused with that, or just let you do what you do best and see how it goes over time. This is where you're on 7 months of doing spaces, and that to me is to be applauded. Week in, week out, you're putting up a space. A lot of people, a few people, no topics, apathy, anger, or friendship. You are, like the captain. You are steering the ship month after month after month, as I have done. And to me, going with Oliver's theories and Oliver's mood too. He just said that he thought it's going pretty good. I literally take Ollie's mood as like, well, it's going pretty good. We're really the Doomer squad. I really feel, with Sandy's help to understand the Doomer squad, I really feel like we're getting a full understanding of the Doomosphere, as she calls it. I really have no problem with it. If they think it's all hopeless and civilization is going to crash and the ecological thing's coming and billions are going to die, by 2035, it's completely fine with me. It doesn't bother me, and it doesn't disturb my lifestyle or my stride or what I'm doing here day in, day out. So I think, Robert, I've heard from Bobby Digital and some of these radical Americans moving into the, if that's our path now in the next week to go check out some real far left Americans. There are millions of them out there that are very atypical, nonconformist. It is part of our tradition. And Bobby Digital is her name, the wonderful young homeless woman that we met. Landless, Rocky, to meet some of these real nonconformist Americans. It looks like we'll be talking with them and meeting more and more South Africans. We will find a South African environmentalist too. We haven't succeeded with that yet. Just somebody with that as their profile. Hi, I'm a South African environmentalist. We will find those people. And I know you've got to get your rest, Robert, to be ready for tomorrow. That your energy is just all encompassing indeed. And I don't. The people just aren't out there. I'm starting to think it's not for a lack of effort on our part. They just are not on Twitter, and they're just not so many environmentalists out there. That I don't know. It's
incredible.
They're just
yeah. There, brother, appreciated indeed. Just to remind everyone in the room before I touch on some comments that you actually made there, which are excellent as always. This room space will be closing probably just after 11:15 p.m. UK time, something like that. And we will be back again, touch wood, God permitting, either Wednesday or Thursday, I would have thought. When we do it all again. You all know the routine by now. It is, of course, Climate and Human Rights Cafe in all its glory for 8+ billion people's perusal, if you will. What everyone chooses to do, indeed, with the foundational elements of this cafe is indeed an ongoing project of communicative intent. Refreshments, of course, always served. vegetarian and vegan biased. Indeed, with either cold or hot drinks available, indeed, as well in the intermission. I always like to share that. Gives a sense of indeed bonding in the room. Of indeed, we all come together with these room spaces with the greater good in hand. I'm thinking actually of what you mentioned. One of the elements that you did mention there, Alex, that we continue to try to prize away what I call voters of irrational and indeed voters who are what I call of reckless intent. There are many of them. They were responsible for putting a certain character, of which will remain with the T word is enough description for now. But I do feel that if we can globally change the face of how voters vote for indeed um, uh, political figureheads, as I call them, political people indeed with intent, not for the greater good of the people that they have voted for, quite the opposite. But these people indeed have all the encompassing abilities of wanting to dismantle your environments, mine, and indeed your communities. It's something that is an ongoing situation which we need to change the very face of in order to what I call bring elements of safeguarding that God knows need to be so within all communities on our planet. Because at the moment, to my mind at least, and not, I'm sure, with many people in the room and out of the room, we have situations that are allowing wholesale, total annihilation of human rights, the destructive elements and the suppression of people's voices at every conceivable level. That is something that has to be addressed on the global stage. But while we still can conceivably have so many people who are for all the usual reasons. And I do understand why people, because of the given elements within their systems, are not willing to stand up to what is now being subjectively being given them and what they're having to live through within these systems. I do understand why. It is of very difficult nature in order to what I call convert people's attitudes, which is something here. I haven't used the word attitude a lot, but converting people's attitudes for the right reasons is indeed one of the greatest challenges that we continue to have. Attitude change, yes, it's an all encompassing one, but it is needed. And it is needed in order to be able to repurpose mindsets that of what I call wandered off that track of responsibility. But of course, responsibility is another element here that is key to bringing about not just community, not just widespread change for all the right reasons, but indeed, it's those elements that need to be put in place in areas of which we have yet to succeed. And it's those areas of which I continue to touch on and talk about. Indeed, we have many, many, many people that are voting in people that have no regard for human rights, no regard for stability of our climate or environment or the ecology of our planet. Hence, why we are in the situation in the USA alone with the government and the figurehead that we have in. It's more than a farce. It's a very, very toxic and sick situation. And of course, there are many people in the USA that have completely and unequivocally walked straight into the hands of Trump and his administration because he couldn't have wished for a better outcome. The fact that he brainwashes a large scale amount of American people into thinking that everything under his leadership is absolutely balanced and fundamental, and indeed that there are a total abundance not just of sustainability, but human rights. They, of course, those people that have voted him in are starting to see the signs now of what has taken place and why, indeed, his actions across the United States border alone have been actions of total fragmentation and failure for all those people that have put their trust in that individual, of which has been, I can only describe as totally a total annihilation of from those people to have that mental ability to realize indeed what they were dealing with. Alex, I know you have more to share with us. What would you like to say on the microphone, my friend?
Yeah, I put up that the Radio Watermelon crew are celebrating their first year tomorrow. So excellent work by them. And I'm thinking, with the young people, they need mentoring, and that we can do. That's almost simple. Some basics, some confidence, and listening to them. We can mentor the young people. We get to the older people, and that's where you see some of that despair and hopelessness, and they've worked so hard all this time and nothing's happened, no results. And that's the area we're pretty good at, and we need to keep being good at it. And it does resemble a religion. And I've been working on human rights since I was 20 years old. I that's just who I am. It's what enabled me to get out of my funk in the first place. When I was young and suffering and having problems, it was working on human rights that got me on my feet and going. So it's just a way of life. It is like what I do, who I am, and who I'll do to the day I drop. So it isn't like joining some movement temporarily or suffering. The human rights is a way of life. This environmentalism is a way of life. It does resemble those religions, churches, and spiritualities. When Ikche is talking about Mother Earth and the buffalo and the rivers, it's the same thing. He's not doing that. That's who he is, who he's always been, who he always will be. There are no choices or suffering or anxiety about it, or try to tell somebody else. He's just being himself, and that's what we have to be. And just stay green, stay environmental, and we will get there. It's when it comes to the communication thing, we're actually the best anyway. We're getting better every day. There's nobody to look for. We go ask McKibben what we should do. He's got nothing to tell us. Hey ho and man, who are we going to go to get to tell us what to do? We're past the point of no return. This is postgraduate school. We're alone on an island trying to figure out our next move. There's nobody else. And I think it is in this format. We got Yaz here, our good friend. She's got something to tell us, and that's our format, Robert. We all work together and we listen to each other, and everybody, every time now and then somebody hits a home run, our jaws drop or we make some progress, and that's the way it goes, Robert. So a good work, everyone, as always.
Thanks for that, Alex. I appreciate you coming back to the microphone and sharing that empowering content. Very much welcomed. Indeed, your sentiments are exactly in tune with how I feel about it. We do the best that we can do because we are each individually, those of us in the room, we have incredible voices. We have incredible talents. We have incredible abilities. Let's just continue to do what we do best, continuing to change the face of the global environmental, ecological, democratic, and human rights landscape with all our might, with all our voices, with all our integrity, with all our understanding, with all our capabilities, with all our guiding processes of which we have become, in our own unique individual ways, experts in our own fields. It's very necessary to reiterate these points a lot of the time, and they're most welcomed indeed by me. Um, Everyone who knows me knows that I champion human rights for every conceivable element and every person that we possibly can champion balanced human rights that actually work collectively with every individual because, as I've said, human rights alongside ecological, climate, and environmental affairs are indeed entwined. They always were and they always will be. I know there's a heck of a lot of people outside these digital room spaces that still do not realize those elements. But if we continue to educate and empower, I do believe that we can guide more people in the right ways to taking on board, if you will, for all the right reasons, collectively, everything that we continue to say and do within our individual, indeed, voiced opinions and the room spaces of which those of us that host and co-host continue to share content with. Having said that, let me take a pause. Oliver, want to bring you up on microphone. I know you have something to share with us.
Thanks, Robert. Just the general mood again. I was thinking about history actually. Mary, who hasn't been on, she does pop up occasionally. She DM'd me. She was outraged about something. I couldn't work out what it was. I first of all thought she was outraged that UK has got a first female head of the Church of England, Archbishop of Canterbury, which is pretty radical if you're into churchy stuff. Which I'm not particularly, although I am tomorrow working for the week a Catholic church with a Nigerian priest in Hounslow, which is the stop on the Piccadilly line before Hounslow West, the stop before Heathrow Airport, and all the people who live there in Hounslow West, they all work in at Heathrow. So I shall be, and I'm inside the church too. Whether many people are there or not, I don't know. But I shall be, and I do find it quite helpful to sometimes I just confront people with it really in a jolly sort of way, and they take it or leave it and just see how they find it. You know me, whether I'm in the street or in a building or a church or wherever I am, I would just bounce this climate crisis off people. I don't try and bounce justice off people. I don't try and bounce off, civil rights and so on too much on them because that really upsets people, and I don't really necessarily want to do that when I'm actually at work. This church actually is a Catholic church, and it's called St. Michael and St. Martin. So, and then they have St. they have St. Michael slaying a dragon as their motif, obviously. So it's going to be lots of fun anyway, and I'm doing marble work, which is quite unusual for me. But history-wise, Mary was banging on about something. I couldn't, you know what she's like. She's banging on about something, and I thought, no, it's all right. I couldn't. I was rather nice that and I actually got the wrong end of the stick because what had happened was they'd authorized in the Canterbury Cathedral to put a bit of graffiti in the main body of the church on a stairwell or something coming down. And all these people were absolutely outraged. I had to point out to them that back in the day, in the 12th, 13th century, the whole interior of the church was wax. All the stonework was you didn't see this bare stone that we see now, including the restored Notre Dame. You saw an interior of a church. All the stonework was wax coloured entirely. Everything was wax coloured. There were murals everywhere. Most of these murals were usually about sort of hell and damnation and devils and stuff like that, in order to induce the poor and the rich actually as well to give all their money to the church. How do you think the church got to be so rich? You see, well, they did it through fear, through terror. So I was just thinking that we've been coming through history all this time. So,
you know, the media are just doing the exact same thing, but they seem to be doing it for, I don't know, it seems like a sort of very odd reason. I mean, they seem to almost be doing it to bring on the kind of end times. And now we have all this pseudo religion in America going on, the sort of cod Christianity, this weird thing that's going on now, where they're trying to bring on the end as well. It seems. It just seems very peculiar that people would really want to do that. I mean, I don't understand why they would want to do it, but I do understand that it happened before. It happened largely, and it happened, you know, happened in a big way all through history. And we're just in one of those phases now, and we're going to get through it, and we're going to get through the other side of this because there are still people out there who can see through it, who can, you know. I'm not planning on getting burnt for my beliefs, by the way, but you know, there are people out there who can see it going on. So if we just keep plodding on, we keep doing the right thing, yeah, I do believe it will be okay.
Yeah, I like those. And so
You don't want to be burnt for it, do you, Robert?
I don't really know, not when it because the cost of Swan Vestas in the old supermarket is a bit over the top these days for the burning bits. So I might want to spare myself the cost of the old Swan Vestas, the price of them. It is a bit difficult. I tell you something, Oliver. I'm really, I'm very happy to have learned that you're going to be spending the week's work in that beautiful church. I think you said, did you say Hounslow? I think you did, didn't you?
Yeah. It's just an I don't know, an 1890s shed in you know, Byzantine shed style in Hounslow. It's rather typical of its type. It's not. I mean, it's not massively my cup of tea, but it's a bit of fun. You know, I was planning on it being very very wet, so. But it's not actually going to be raining at all because all the rain's in Spain. You know, mainly in
Yeah.
the plain.
I consider put up. I did have a squint, Oliver, in the jumbotron and have a look at the flooding in a certain part of the.
Oh, yeah. It's funny how it's always Spain, isn't it? I mean, France gets quite a lot too, by the way, but it doesn't get reported in quite the same way. I think it's because Volcaholics in Spain as well, and now the others are all cottoned on to her reportage as well. They've all been, you know, various other ones have been doing it as well. I mean, I suppose it's in a way for a lot of them, it's kind of like a business, isn't it? You know,
Okay.
document the disasters, document the chaos. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
It's I tell you something, Oliver. I shall be thinking about you basking in marble over the consecutive weeks, days. Beautiful marble. I do love marble, though. It really is
Yeah, it's not bad actually. This isn't too bad. It's yeah, it's not all. There's a bit of butcher's shop, but the rest of it is quite attractive. And there's some mosaic as well, which I was like. I do like mosaic. It's fiddly, but it's very satisfying to work with. It's not my normal thing, you know. I just happen to do it when I get a chance, now and then. And the priest is this great big Nigerian guy, you know, and he's very stern.
can imagine. No, I've seen some of those priests, and they're stern, indeed. But they're what I call gentle lion hearts within themselves. They have
Yeah,
this
maybe.
maybe, but they have this stern framework, indeed. Stature.
The parish, the congregation is not hugely, largely, but a great portion of it is Indian again. Now remember that we're in Hounslow, massively Indian, Pakistani, who else? Probably Bangladeshi as well. And I say it's a kind of housing block. Everybody works at Heathrow. It's just like, you know, and this is why it's so hard to break something like flying. You can't, you know, you're smashing all these people's livelihoods. So it's a difficult one. There's so many different avenues of complication, complexity, and difficulty generally, isn't there? There just are. You know,
And
it's difficult. It's difficult. We keep going.
me too, Oliver, and we
Mm.
still get that we need to do, because your methods of continuing to plod are the ways of which I do continue to see things. I think you already know I'm at one with you on that. And we will continue to do that. I'm just actually having a whimsical thought in my mind about that particularly stern priest and an engaging conversation about human rights, or rather the lack of them. Be very interesting to hear his views, indeed, on the state.
God, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Nigerian, ooh, yeah. Well, I'll see what I can do, Robert.
I can imagine it will be quite a dexterous conversation for you, Oliver.
You might sack me on the spot. But I bought all these materials, hundreds of pounds worth of stuff.
But it's my sentiments of the situation ring like church bells from the rafters on that, I can tell you. But indeed, let me take a pause. Yaz, you've been very patient, dear sister. What would you like to share with us again, Yaz? Great to have you back on the microphone.
Oh, thank you. I thought time's up. It's something that Alex mentioned and made me think of this person in my town. They have a new gallery, and I went in finally, to check it out, the artwork, and she had paintings of wonderful paintings, but some that she did her own, of Picasso, a wild horse with Picasso. And we spent time like an hour and a half just talking, about art and horses and things, because I'm crazy about animals anyways. But she is a Trump supporter, and I'm glad I was able to talk to her, because I think, trying to communicate with some people and why they chose what they chose. She is educated, and I'll probably go back in and talk to her some more. But I just found she just didn't seem the type, of person, um, given the administration, how
Yeah.
cultish these people are. But she even did a painting of 3 bulls, and one of them was Trump. But
Yeah.
I just found it interesting, and we talked about our backgrounds and, some of the issues we might have had or our kids had, and her kids were on the street, and she helped them out. And she says, well, he really helps the churches. And I think it was something about churches. So there's I don't know what he's doing with these churches, but Biden did that too. To get their votes. I just found it I found it interesting, but also, wondering, with all they don't know everything that's going on. That's part of it. They hear lies from our side, and we hear lies from their side. So there's some real confusion in between that. The truth isn't getting out. It isn't getting out to their side. I don't know. I just wanted to share that. Yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Yaz, for coming back to the microphone. It's great to hear you. It really is. And you're so right about that. They don't know what's going on. And that is the sentiment that I continue to broadcast out in so many communicative areas within communities. Every country needs to hear these words. They don't realize what's going on. They don't understand what's going on. They don't comprehend what's going on. And one of the greatest ills of this entire process is half of them don't want to know what's going on because they are so wrapped up, indeed, in these what I call blanket failed ideologies, this state of being that has no semblance, but has everything to do with detachment of everything in our world. I'm not just going to use the words modern world here. I'm going to use the words being within the balanced landscape of our world in its entirety. It's a far more better way, I feel, vocally, of describing this situation, because indeed we have vast amounts of people here on a generational scale. I think I mentioned this a bit earlier before we gained your presence in the room, Alex, of what is and has and continues to be part and parcel of this situational state of affairs, if you will. We have boomers, we have the boomer generation, we have the X generation, we have the millennials, and every single one of those generations is wrapped up, indeed, for the vast majority of those individuals, indeed, if I may put it like that, with not being all encompassing in the wrong directions. In case anyone might touch me and say I am, I'm certainly not in any entirety. I'm actually being as crystal clear and concise as I possibly can be. I'm talking about what is and has been mentioned many times before and said in many different ways by myself and many other people, I might add. Some of indeed, what I call deep, indeed, very creative and dexterous thinkers on this X platform. A favorite of mine on this X platform, my friend, I can never pronounce the surname without actually looking at it. So apologies to you, George. But I think you know he is Greek as far as I can remember. I should do after following him for the amount of time I have. Indeed, he's an author and he's a renowned, in my view, and very, very, very talented orator. And indeed very talented vocabulary wise with his observations of us as a human species on this planet. I have been many a time been inspired by his vocal and dexterous oratorial content, of which I find very encompassing, I will say the least. It's indeed some of his observations of which I find absolutely critical to the observations of how I observe human beings, the human species on this planet. It is indeed we are, I will have to say, and it can be wrapped up in many different vocal interpretations, if you will. But I will suffice to say for the content of which I'm sharing now with how I'm describing it. I will say that there are so many of us that across the transitional generations, if you will, if I can put it like that are oblivious, to want of a better word, totally and utterly oblivious of the things that are having the greatest magnitude and effect, not just to the ability of our life support systems on this planet, but to the very ability of, indeed, yes, our children's futures, I grant you. I've talked about that often enough. But to the very ability of us to understand how important what I call measured and indeed responsible sustainability is across this planet, because this is something that we fundamentally need to get a grip on. And that grip needs to be a vice grip for the right reasons, because we have lost touch with sustainability across this earth. We have lost touch with democratic sustainability, yes. My God, that has been disappearing for countless decades. Democracy is only in name across this earth in so much of the political and geographical landscape. I kid you not. I'm not kidding you. I've no reason to. Democracy indeed has diminished in such a tiny extent that we really have, and this is the cast clear truth from my perspective of things. We have the most minute levels of democracy that we could ever have imagined across our earth in the state of affairs in 2025. I can only imagine with observational intent what our so-called principal abilities of trying to bring a new dawn of bringing democracy for all the right levels and right capabilities across our earth might look like in the next 20 to indeed 40, 50 years or more within a geographical compass on us.
It may be, Robert, that we've just got to the station a bit ahead of everybody else. Remember that. The vehicle may not be available yet. I know
Yeah.
it seems weird. We think it's weird, but for most people, maybe they're still waiting for the vehicle. Maybe, the amount of damage that can be done will happen anyway, and then that vehicle will arrive. People will get it more thoroughly. I don't know. It's just it's a flippant remark, but it's meant to, if you like, try and open a door into that world of those people who are so oblivious, it would seem. I don't think they're oblivious. I just think they're shy. I think they're just waiting to get on the fucking train. And we're really there to push them on the bloody train. We're like those Japanese guys on the Tokyo Underground who are pushing all the people on the train. That's what we're doing.
I'm very appreciative of you coming to the cut and thrust of the microphone there, if you will, because that analogy, I'm again at one with you, Oliver. I think that's a very excellent interpretation of the way things could indeed play out to be. Well, I clear my voice. An excellent indeed understand.
Have you got your white gloves, though? That's the point. You've got to have your white gloves.
Well,
These people, cramming people onto the Tokyo Underground.
My God, never so was in the course of human history RRH's white gloves needed so much to be able to soothe the mass pushing intent.
Well, I think they wear them it's like a hygiene thing, isn't it? I mean, you can't touch people, right? So you wear the gloves. It's part of the culture. And then you can touch the people. You literally push them cram them onto the train.
Yeah. That cramming and pushing, I know, Oliver, is something that has been ingrained into the. I know only too well. Those London Underground carriages over the decades have been absolutely squeezed to the proverbial gills with human bodies that have been trying to be what I call collectively able to breathe while being subject more like a tin of sardines.
No.
The state of affairs, indeed, with tube transport in the United Kingdom.
But I do have Wi-Fi on the Central Line, underground, deep underground. You get Wi-Fi, you get a live feed.
Oh, that's I guess
it's so silly. It's all so silly.
For breath. So it's not all bad. Just proverbially so under certain conditions. Yes, it never ceases to amaze me just how many people are squeezed to death, literally, within those tube carriages. I have watched that over the course of years. Indeed, it has been.
Come the day with the climate, they'll be squashed in there willingly. You'll see. Don't worry about it.
I think you're absolutely right about that. I think I think there are no depths actually to how many people could be proverbially squashed, literally to death, in one of those railway carriages. But it is one of the situations that continues to be within the social structures, indeed, of our societies. Talking about social structures, I have indeed managed to guide this room space into even longer dexterous levels of communicative intent and timescale capsules as we are still alive and flourishing at 11:30 p.m. UK time. Being as there is still more to say, I will continue the conversation probably to about 11:45 UK time for those of us that are dexterously clockwise inclined enough to continue this transition of total and utter dedicated communicative elements. As we do, of course, I think I want to touch again on the social ills and the social structures of what I have been having as a theme throughout this evening's proceedings, apparently. And that theme is of talking about what I believe now is the very necessary elements of human rights justice entwined within social structures and what it continues to mean for each of us individually across the planet. We ask ourselves, or indeed many of us ask ourselves, and many of us don't. This is one of the problems. We continue to not function when it comes to talking about the tough questions. I'm kind of thinking about what the political landscape or the political landscapes will be like across the board in even as little as 5 years' time. I believe, of course, that many of the political landscapes we see now will be completely unrecognizable, of which they usually are, even within a timed out 2 or 3 year timescale, never mind about 5 years. Of course, when we talk about USA governmental politics and that, and the Trump administration. Not that we expect, of course, Trump to be living to 150 years old and still be politically active. Even that would be probably something of a freak of nature that none of us want to look forward to. But indeed, I think the geographical or the political landscape across America will be absolutely all encompassing throughout the next couple of years. If I know the way that the system and political landscape within the USA changes on an ever constant basis. Indeed, the political landscape in the UK, as dire as it is under Starmer, but as I've said under many occasions, under no uncertain terms, that I would, although much as I dislike the Labour Party and anything that Starmer has to offer in this homeland of the UK, I also dislike the fact of even having to think about the Reform Party, or indeed the situation of having Farage's cabinet or reform in any particle of governing politics in the United Kingdom. I think not. That would be an absolute, total, and unequivocal disaster for many, many people. But having said that, the political landscapes across the board, whether it be in Europe, France, Italy, Spain, indeed, or wherever the geographical compass is in Europe, and indeed Asia, and indeed further afield, I think the political ideals will continue to either be redressed or continue to fragment depending on the situation for what it is. Fragmentation, of course, has been a fundamental embodiment of the principles of what we continue to have to endure across our planet. But that fragmentation does not have to be what I call subject to every single one of us having to feel that we are totally, what's the word for it, helpless in the way that we can change situations within our, not just local communities, but within our national communities as well. I think what I'm trying to bring in is an encompassing, sweeping statement here. Is the fact that although many of us have been duped and conned across the board collectively and globally into voting for wrong presidents, wrong political people, I think much ground can continue to be made if we realize that we have to learn very quickly from these political and voting mistakes, of which many of us, yes, have been guilty of. And I think we have to learn incredibly quickly in order to put in place what I can only use and describe. But the fact is that we will still have voting taking place within our systems, whether we like it or whether we don't. And although many of the ways that voting is done, the way it is counted, the way it is judged, the way it is put out towards you, the public, is what I call faulty ethics, faulty thinking, and faulty principles, and faulty ideologies of principles, I might add. Although all of that is present within the voting process, I think we can learn much if we do try to guide our hand when we actually vote at the ballot box. We know it's unpleasant to have to do it. We know and we think to ourselves on many occasions, why am I voting for this when I should be voting for that? And even that is not giving that I think we need to have an all-encompassing understanding. Those of us that vote recklessly, those of us that do not put our mindset to the very principle of voting for at least with a semblance of responsibility. But there again, having said that, I know there'll be many people would turn around to me and say, well, how can I vote with a responsibility in any given scale when all I get given to me to be able to vote for has the same tarnishes attached to it, no matter what the flag of the party? I agree with you about that. It is totally a massive problem. And that is why I think that so much of the time, and not just that I think it, I already know because of the very sheer scale of the time that I've been watching these events, that protest votes are one of the oldest, indeed, inclinations that's been and continue to be so. Of course, it doesn't have to be a continued process. We know that. We know that when I talk about voting for the greater good, I talk about voting indeed for people that have at least a semblance. But I do and will share this, that while we continue to have to restructure and reform all voting processes and parties across the board, I do think that us as collective individuals can somehow, with our voice and with our deeds and with our shaping of intent, I think we can bring to the board a level of guiding people who are not just democratically sound, but ecologically and environmentally and human rights sound, to be at least have the ground credentials to be fit for the posts within political offices. I know it's not a perfect situation, but it was never going to be. But I think if we can actually bring people that have more of indeed of a shaping and an understanding of what I call moral, ethical, and indeed behaviors which are conducive to democratic and human rights elements with environmental responsibility, I think if we can guide people within a political process to be evaluated and put in power that have all those credentials attached to them, considering those that went before them had none of those credentials attached to them, I think we are gaining some ground, if I can put it into those words, in the voting and democratic process, or ongoing reshaping and remorphing of democratic processes, if I can put it like that. I do think at least we need to try to work at least as what I call comprehensively as we can do with what the foundations are of what we currently and continue to have and will no doubt continue to have in place across the scale, across our planet, from country to country. Having said that, unless we have any more hands, I think that's my conclusion of observational affairs for this room space. And indeed, we have Yaz back with us. We'll hear out Yaz, and then we will close up this room space and be back, all being well, touch wood, either Wednesday or Thursday. Yaz, to talk us out, my friend, what would you like to share with us in the room?
Just on voting, I forget, maybe it was in 2020, and there were issues, about the validity of the ballot and whether they were counted or not. So when I voted, I took photos of everything that I voted for and the ticket number, everything. And I think at that time I even paid to have it registered. They stopped it after that. When I sent my mail-in ballot, and I made sure that every person down to the county, the city, I vetted. I checked if I didn't know who they voted for. I checked that to make sure, that there was that the person I'm voting for is the person I wanted to vote for. So I just wanted to leave on that note. Thank you for this.
Thank Indeed, I do agree with your sentiments entirely. It's always an excellent idea to check the credentials, to check and see and be careful. Because being careful indeed with that responsibility element indeed, which you very brilliantly shared with us there, Yaz, is important. And I urge many people to have that level of responsibility attached to their voting credentials. I think it's a vital need. Because I know only too well, like everyone in this room space, and hopefully those listening out of the room space as well will testify to that. Indeed, what I can figuratively put this in the vocabulary I want. To vote with irresponsibility is one thing, but to vote with not being careful and indeed subjective in your basis of analysis and rudimentary checking is to a disadvantage of yourself, a disadvantage to the wider community, and a disadvantage indeed to the very systems of which you are trying to actively steer for the greater good. We are stuck with a voting system indeed, geographically within the different voting system credentials across our planet with any given country. For one, I will